So these are the instructions to make this relaxed raglan. The pattern is from Patterns for Pirates, and I'm just going to demonstrate how to put the 8.5 by 11 inch letter size pattern together. So you'll want to have your pages all printed on 8.5 by 11 inch paper. You want to make sure that your pattern pieces are accurate size. So to do that, you need to measure out your test square here. So you have a 1 inch square. You'll just lay this over here on the 1 inch space and make sure that it lines up perfect, which it does. If it is off at all, maybe it's like 1/8 of an inch off, you probably did your printing fit to screen. So you would need to go reprint your pattern. Once you know that your pattern sizes are correct, you're gonna start taping them together. So you're gonna start with the A1, A2 piece, okay? And this is the A2, A3. So what you will do here is you'll just lay the pattern on top. So I've got my A2 piece laying on top of my other A2. And you wanna make sure that they're straight across the top, straight across the bottom. The part that you need to tape the best is along the colored lines, because that is where you're gonna be cutting out. And the white area, like out here, I'd want to tape this, but this area over here is going to be thrown away as trash. Okay. So once you have your pieces lined up, you'll just place a piece of tape across there. You can also use a glue stick to do this. So if you don't have tape, or if you just prefer, you can also use a glue stick to glue down the two pieces together. It's just whatever's your personal preference. All right, so once you've taped that line, then you're just gonna grab your next piece and so on. So all of my A pattern pieces are gonna go on this row. Once I'm done with A's, then I'm gonna look for my pages that have B on top, C on the bottom, and those would go across this. And you'll just keep repeating that until all of your pattern pieces are taped together. All right, so I'm just showing this. This is the start to what you need to have done. So I have the first 2 rows of the pattern, and now I'm just going to continue off camera to tape row C, D, E, F. This is a relatively large pattern as far as the number of pieces that you're going to use. So you'll just want to continue this process and really just make sure that the areas, like if you're going to be cutting out around here, that you've got a piece of tape across these spots that you will be cutting. All right, so after taping all of the pieces together, A1 through F5, this is what you will have. I am actually gonna zoom out a little bit just to make sure you can see the whole entire thing. My son's in the shot. But what you should have is the raglan front, the raglan back, and then the raglan sleeve. If you're doing any of the bands, neckband, the cuffs, those will all be cut separately. They are not pattern pieces, okay? This pattern also comes with a elbow patch piece and then a triangular piece that you could use. Those are all just embellishments that you could use if you wanted to. All right, to protect the rights of the pattern, I'm covering up part of the pattern piece. But what you're doing for this next step is really important. Regardless of what size you are making, I am going to encourage you to cut out along the outer edge. So in this case, I've printed in color. It's the blue dotted line. For all of the pattern pieces, you should cut out around that outer edge. Use paper scissors. If you're in my class, you want to make sure you grab those paper scissors and not use fabric shears. The reason we are doing this is so if you determine later on that, and I'm going to go ahead and cut a notch right here. I'm going to cut out around this notch. I like to do my notches outward. But if you determine later on that the pattern maybe fit too large or it fit too small, or if you decide you want to make another one for a friend or family member, then you don't have to redo this whole process. Your pattern pieces will all come in the largest size, and then we will do another step later to trace the pattern piece onto tracing paper, and then you can trace it in whatever size that you want. So for all of the pieces right now, go ahead and cut out along the largest size. When you get to these dark black lines, This one right here is a fold. You'll just cut out along the edge of that. When you're on the sleeve, go ahead and cut around the long sleeved hemline, even if you're gonna make a short sleeve shirt, so that you will always have those lengths. And then for the back piece and the front piece, even if you were wanting to make a curved hem, go ahead and cut out around the largest bottom piece, which is the tunic hemmed bottom. So we're gonna do our pattern preparation now. So you have your pattern piece cut out. What I'm using here to trace is parchment paper. I would actually prefer to use something else, but I'm at home doing this. If you're in my class at school, you'll either use tracing paper, or I have the paper from the doctor's office tables. They are both translucent, so you can see through them. And either one should be wide enough for almost all the pattern pieces that we have. What I'm going to demonstrate here is just what you would do to trace out your pattern and also to adjust the size. We want to customize these patterns so that they fit you. Each of my students in my class, I want to make sure the pattern fits you well. So I've selected this relaxed raglan pattern mainly because it is really forgiving in the size. And as you are learning basically how to work with knits, I don't want you to have to worry too much about the fit. So we're not going to be exact in this when we do the different sizing, but you'll want to be rather careful when you're measuring everything out. Just do your best, but we're not going to be as precise as we might be if this was a fitted garment. So I've taken the measurements here. These are just a sample set of measures. So you might have a bust that fits an extra small. So if you looked at your measurements and you fit an extra small, your waist, maybe you fit a small, and then in your hips, you hit a large. So what you could do is, if you're unsure of what to do, you could trace this large line is the brown dotted line. So you could simply trace that whole brown mark. I could just do the brown the whole way. And if you do that, then when you do your first stitch, when you sew your shoulders in, you could try it on, see how it fits, and then take things in as you need. And so that's one way of doing it. Since we are going to be using the serger, you could pin it in place and size it as you are sewing and trim off any of the excess. Probably though, the preferred way is just to grade down the pattern as you go. So up at the top here where it starts out as an extra small, I'm going to trace along the dotted pink line, and I'm just going to stay even with that. So this would be like up on my neck area, which is the smallest measurement. Okay, when you come to these notches, whenever you have the two notches, there's two triangles side by side, I always like to draw them like a flat-topped mountain. So I draw one angle, one going flat across the top, and then my next one is going to angle out to meet the other point. So then I'm going to continue drawing on the dotted pink line as I go around here. This is the arm area. It's going to be right under the armpit. Okay, and so now I have that extra small area going. Now I'm going to continue on that extra small line, and then when I get just under, so here, right here, that's going to be underneath the armpit, so the bust would be straight across there. But as I work toward the waist area, which is going to be down here, I want to find a point where I'm going to get all the way out here to the small. So I'm going to make myself a little mark on the pattern, just somewhere in that general area of where the waist would be, and I'm going to need these two lines to connect. Now if you were in my class, we do have some French rulers that have a rounded curve, so you would lay that, and I can show you in class if needed. You could lay that French ruler right here to give you that curved line. You don't want it to be like a turn. You don't want a line to like go over here and then down. it needs to ease in to the other one. So what you can do is from here down, I just really gradually start to work my way out. Okay, and I'm doing the same thing over here. I want to work my way out until eventually we meet in the middle. And it should just be a gradual change, not a drastic line. Okay, so there we go. So now that I have that, I can trace over it a little bit darker, and I might need to go up a little bit higher here, okay, so that it's not a sharp turn. On our tracing paper at school, you will want to use just a really sharp pencil to do this with, and then you can make changes as needed. Okay, so now my hip measurement needs to come all the way out here to a large. However, because we are going from right in here all the way out, you definitely want this to be a gradual change. We don't want it to just jog over here. So again, we're going to pick out by the hip, and I'm gonna do the tunic length on this. So we're gonna try to work our way out to this area over here. Okay, so there's my point. Here's my other point. I'm just gonna slowly and gradually start working my way in. So then you've met up here to that large line, and you can just trace to the bottom where it's gonna meet back up with the bottom of your pattern piece. From here you could choose where you're going to do your hem. If you wanted that short shirt that has a band around it, you'd go on this line. If you're wanting just to hem the regular shirt, you'd go on this line. If you want that curved, I'd go from right here and curve it around. If you were in my class, I've said this to you before, but I will remind you, the curved hem is probably, in my opinion, the most difficult hem to do, especially for a beginner. So my recommendation would be to do a straight across hem or a band. The bands seem like they might be complicated, but they're actually really easy. I actually like them because you almost always have a really clean finish if you press everything nicely as you're working. So you'll have to make those choices. So this was the back of the shirt. We're gonna do that same process of determining which size to use and just grading it out for the front piece. And then you may even want to do some adjustments to your sleeves. However, I would recommend, unless you just have maybe your arms are really big compared to your upper body, or maybe you have a large upper body, like a larger bust, but very small arms. So if you do have some adjustments to make there, you may want to talk to me. But typically, whatever measurement I use in this area, so up here I used an extra small, I'm going to use the extra small sleeve as well to make sure that it fits really nice right there. Alright, before you pick up your pattern piece and you're done, once you've traced all of the outer lines, you need to go in with a ruler and make the markings on your pattern. So I'm going to find this line right here. This is talking about my stretch of my fabric. So there's a line going across, arrows at the end, showing you that the stretch of your fabric needs to go in that direction. Okay, then I do want to mark in here that this side of the paper is the area that we're going to cut on the fold. Okay, down here we have another line. This is showing me that my grain line needs to run right here, so parallel to the selvage. Okay. And let's see if there's any other markings. One thing that you may want to go ahead and write in on this, especially if you end up making more of these, is labeling it. So we have the 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then also I need to label it that this is the back. And I need to label how many, so I'm going to cut 1. Okay, so you label it. You could go in and put the name of the pattern also. That might be helpful for you. But you just want that important information so that when you are cutting out the pattern, you are able to have all the information needed. You have all of those pattern markings in place. You can take away your pattern weights, or at least some of them, and start cutting on that parchment. And it does roll up really bad. So if you're in my class, you're probably using the tracing paper. Not that it's not gonna roll up on you, but it's maybe not quite this bad. Anyway, I need to trim out around that line. And if you noticed any areas that have like a sharp corner as you're cutting it, you can sort of adjust that a little bit. Like right here, what I'm doing, I'm gonna go ahead and cut a little bit straighter up than I had marked because it did have somewhat of a turn. Okay. Also there, I'm gonna meet back up right here. Okay, and I'm gonna go around that curve, and one more time, just remember as you're cutting out this pattern piece to go around the notches. Oops, that tore a little bit. I'm gonna go around my notch. There we go. Okay, so now you have one pattern piece cut out. Looks like a kindergartner wrote on it. I was trying to write from a very strange angle. But anyway, so you would keep this and then go ahead and repeat this process. Make sure to grade the front piece the same way that you graded the back and the sizing so that it fits together. And then don't forget your notches. Anywhere you see the notches, make sure you cut those out, the triangle shape, because that will help you in lining up your pattern pieces later on when they are cut to the fabric.